All right, we're live. Yay. Okay, let me put some chat stuff in here. Oh, there we go. Finally, chat's working. Okay, so I have okay. So I always forget if it is sorry, I'm trying to post a really great question that I got from a subscriber. So I'm just going to post that, and let's do this. Will that work? Yes. Okay. Bear with me here. Here we go. Okay, cool. So one of the things that happens when you are posting a message in when you're posting a message on Facebook, it apparently what happens is it also only allows you to post 200 characters, which is weird because, I mean, you're trying to actually just post a comment, not a tweet. I don't understand why there's a limit on that, but that's fine. You know, I'm doing it now. So, and one of the things that came up was this great question on a scenario video that I did, incidentally. The challenge with that one is, obviously I'd answered the question via the actual comment, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I think it's funny how we actually get into conversation about scenarios, and this is the danger. They fit into a lot of places. They can augment a lot of things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a great fit. And also, one of the other things you have to think about is, let's get into the question, and then I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking. So this is a question from Monique. I have to teach how to use our proprietary software to our customers. Should I do a video demo and then get them to answer multiple choice questions? I think I also have to teach business cases, and in that case, scenario-based learning would work. So I guess the question really is a scenario a good fit for that customer education? And then business cases, does it work? And this is kind of interesting because your customers, I mean, we're not expecting them to be super users. Very rarely are people investing time to become super users unless they're like, you know, they're, let's say they're a project manager and they want to become a superstar at Basecamp. But that really is still, they're going to learn it as much as needed to become a rock star at what they're doing. So really what they're trying to always do is solve a problem for themselves, which is in some ways actually way more awesome than what we do with a lot of our learners, because sometimes, and I don't know if this is true for you, but you'll launch a learning program and you'll the people who are participating in it will actually be force-fed that program. They're not necessarily, like, especially things like onboarding or yearly compliance training, they're not really into it. They don't really want to become the super users of that program. So you're actually, like, with those programs, you're fighting an uphill battle. You're trying to say, this is important for you, so go ahead and check it out. Now with a customer, that's a little bit different, because if they're coming to you, one, they're probably paying for the service, or two, they have a problem that you have indicated you can help them solve, which is great. Now, that's kind of where we want our learners to be, almost, that they've perceived a gap and this need, and they're like, oh, look, this is where I can find the help. Great, let's go. So in some cases, like if somebody says, I have to teach how to use our proprietary software to our customers, they already potentially perceive the gap. I don't know how to use the software, and it's going to help me solve this business problem. That's great. You might not even need a scenario necessarily to help them perceive the gap. However, a scenario would become useful, maybe just at like a mini scenario, to show them where, to basically help direct them to the right area to solve a specific problem. But you might not necessarily need a scenario, because one of the things that happens when a customer comes to us and is looking for answers is they already have a question. So your job really most of the time is to make sure that the question that they're asking in their mind is the question that is evident on your site, or there's a frequently asked questions area that speaks the same language. Meaning we should do the same for our learners when they're like, I don't know how to solve this problem, and they're saying it a certain way. You've got that language and they just see it and they're like, oh yeah, this is it. This is where I should be going. So with customers, you do the same thing. You actually do more of that because the closer the things that they're asking are to the language that you're using on your software side, the better. So that's why I want to discuss this a little bit, because I think it's a little bit different because they're already kind of primed. And then also you have to figure out, especially with customers, like I said, they might not want to be super users of your software. You might be teaching them things that they don't actually want to learn because they don't need to. They're busy. They want problems solved. So one of the things you might do is say, these are my top 5 situations that people struggle with, design scenarios around those. And here's the way to do that process without overwhelming them with everything else. Because why would you test them on something? The proof is in the pudding. Are they using the software, right? And then the other thing is that the question was, should I, give them a demo video first, then have them watch that, and then give them some sort of a test at the end? Or should I give them a scenario and then test them? Or I don't know what the alternative was. But one of the things I was thinking is, when you start looking at a demo and it's kind of long, what happens is you have no idea why you're watching the demo or why all the features are important. I don't know. I think personally, I would not want to watch a demo for software. I would actually just say, okay, what is it that I actually want to accomplish? So what I would say is have somebody, if you are intent on having them place all of those actions in actual context, is have the first have somebody say, okay, John is trying to send an invoice to his customer, let's say. And do you want to help him do that? Now, one of the things is you can try, this is the option that you'd give to the learner. Now, to solve John's problem, you can just go into the software and try it yourself. You can putski around in there and see if you can do it. Or if you're not as tech savvy or not as brave or whatever, you can watch the demo first to see how to do that. And then you can go into the software and play around with it. So what happens is that captures a lot of different kinds of learners, right? Our customers in this case. I think they're all our customers. And people who are in a rush and just want to find out exactly how to get things done and then, not skip around. People who are like, oh, I have some time, or I'll just play around with the software and see what happens. Maybe I'll discover other things. Or sometimes people like, and it depends really. It's funny because I'm a different kind of learner depending on the context of my situation, what time of day it is, what time of what I'm trying to accomplish. So those things vary. Sometimes I'm the kind of learner that says, I only have 10 minutes, so I want to watch the demo so that I can get to the right answer and get this done as efficiently as possible. And sometimes I'm the kind of person who says, this software looks pretty easy. I'm just going to putski around in there to see if I can figure it out on my own. So that varies and changes. So we can't actually put people in blocks like that, because they might come back a day later and have a different kind of outlook on what they want to achieve. Maybe they've become a little more comfortable with the software, and now they'll be the kind of person who always just putskis around because they enjoy that and they enjoy discovering it for themselves. So I say always give people those 2 options at minimum, and then always make those scenarios sound like something that they would say if they were trying to solve that problem. And I found this actually a lot when I'm designing scenarios with subject matter experts, and then I go to like the end user and the top performer in the field, that the language that they use can sometimes be actually very different. And so you really have to make sure that you're not using internal language that your company is comfortable with, or the subject matter expert has proposed based on some sort of a resource that at the end user, when they look at it, it sounds like nothing that they would actually ask for. So this has happened to me where I've had subject matter expert design a scenario with me. And when we're designing kind of the conversation that was happening in the scenario, one of the people said something like issue a credit or issue a credit back or something like that. And then when it hit the subject matter or it hits the end user, they were like, we don't call it that. I think what you mean here is a chargeback. So they were actually using two completely different phrases. The procedure doesn't change, but the end user has to be able to relate to that so that, when they select it, it's a valid error that they're making if it is an error, and that it then leads to a consequence that makes sense to them. So that's one of the things that you have to think about. Now, this is not the first time I've been asked about customer education and using scenarios for customer education. Now, I don't have the luxury of doing that here for this particular question, but I've had people send me questions about how would they actually be able to incorporate scenarios into their customer training because people are finding things difficult. And so I always then try to look at the interface and what people are trying to accomplish. And I have to tell you that 9 times out of 10, the reason people are finding something difficult to use is because it is not intuitively designed. So I've had people get in touch with me and say, hey, can we create some scenarios around our website because people are finding it hard to navigate? That's not a scenario problem. That's a navigation problem. Or like I said, sometimes you have a frequently asked questions section and it speaks nothing like the end user, it speaks nothing like the customer. So there's no need for you to have a frequently asked questions if they've come from not your customers, because then they're not asked questions by your customers. They're just like a regurgitation of procedure lists on your site. So and I always stress this, that scenarios are a very flexible medium and can be used in very, very many places, but they are not the silver bullet. You have to look at the scenario in relationship to all the other things that it supports because it fits into an ecosystem of things. And so it doesn't matter how awesome your scenario is, because if your website is so complicated or the information that people are trying to find is so hard to use or convoluted, the investment should actually be made on the UX UI side, not training people to use a poor system or a difficult system more efficiently. I know sometimes you can't get away from that and you have to, some systems are complicated, but in most cases, if like, let's say, and this has happened too, how can we teach people how to use our form? Forms should be intuitive. So if you have to teach somebody how to fill out a form, that means your form sucks. And that's just the truth. So when people get in touch with me about that, I say, you don't need a scenario. You need a better form software, and you need to think about and you need to test it with your users to make sure that the questions you're asking are simply intuitive enough for them to do that, because that's a no-brainer to me. Yeah, so I hope that was helpful, and it's a little bit more detailed than the actual answer I was able to provide via the chat comments. So I hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions about scenarios, scenario design, when to use scenarios, when are they good fit, what's a good augmentation of a scenario, post it in the comments below the video. Also, if you think that you would probably get more out of this if I ran it a little bit later in the afternoon, because I'm trying to run these at the same time every day, but I could move it around, and I run these every day, Monday to Friday. So if you find you could potentially join a little later, shoot me a little comment. I might be able to accommodate that. Who knows? Yeah. And if you have any questions about designing scenarios and you want some one-on-one help, because one of the things I find is that everybody loves scenarios. Everybody wants to have a very engaging scenarios. They've seen things like Broken Coworker. They've seen things like Haji Kamal. But one of the things where they get kind of hung up on is talking to subject matter experts and top performers in the field and making sure when those people are super slammed busy, that the time that you get with them, you actually get everything that you need, or at least 90% of it, to actually create a really good scenario. And a lot of people struggle with that. So if you're the kind of person who struggles with that and needs some help, reach out to me, Anna at annasabramowitz.com, and maybe we can work together and I can help you. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and I will be back here again tomorrow. Like I said, any questions, post them in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Oh yeah, do you guys want to see the teeth again? Let me just pull them out. Those are the best. I really should be doing a lot of that. That was just for me. That really was just for me. All right. Okay. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.